well, they're waiting for the vultures to jump on them. And people like Edward and Sylvia Brown and James Van Praagh, they are the vultures sitting there in the trees waiting to see the weak and the vulnerable go by, and they descend on them and they snap them up. So it's a heartless racket, it's a heartless scam, it's a heartless swindle. These people are doing this game in order to take advantage of weak people who can't defend themselves in many cases. Now, I've got an example, several examples of John Edward on his show doing readings, and one of them, the most astonishing piece of videotape that the producers of Crossing Over actually allowed to go into the tape. I can't believe that they did it, but I can believe it when I think back and I say, wait a minute, they know they're dealing with people who aren't very smart and who are very vulnerable. Therefore, they will believe something like this. A woman appeared on that program backstage after a reading had been done for her in the studio. And she was all teary-eyed and mopping away at her face and such like that with a big smile. She'd made contact with Mom. And the off-camera voice asks her something to the effect, are you convinced that John Edward did make contact with the spirit of your mother? And she said, oh, yes, oh, yes. What was it that proved to you that that was successful? She said, well, the one thing that proved it to me, and you can't deny this, he said my mother was exuberant and bubbling and effervescent and loud and happy and giggling and laughing, hardly get a word in edgewise. She just talked so much. And you know, in life she wasn't like that at all. She was very shy and retiring, very mousy little lady. And I always thought, oh, Mom, you should really express yourself. Make friends. Go out and meet people. Be a little more, you know, outgoing with people. Express yourself. And now that she's in heaven and she's like that, that's what made me very happy. That's my proof. In other words, John Edward's reading was 100% wrong. And because of that, she accepted it as being 100% right. You can't deal with these people. Wrong is right, and right is right. So, John Edward always wins.
One of several statistical messages we wish to impart is that correlation is not causation. Because two things are linked doesn't mean one caused the other. But let me ask you a question. You wrote a book called The Faith Healers. My mother, back in, I'm estimating 1984, was very sick with breast cancer. And we had grown up in a fairly conservative Methodist church. And she was not one who generally would have done such a thing, but she had extensive cancer in her lymph system. A faith healer came to our church. She reluctantly went to the service, and probably 2 months later was somewhat miraculously free of cancer throughout her body. Would it be your contention that that was coincidental?
I have to ask, did she take medical treatment?
She sure did.
Do we know what the cause of the remission of the cancer was? No. It might be the medical treatment that she sought, that she had, or it might be the intervention of the faith healer. Since we don't have any control on this, we can't tell. I can't say one way or the other. And of course, the evidence is now no longer available to us, unfortunately. Causation is a difficult thing to assign in matters like this. Now, you will get people who say, oh, I was under medical treatment for the longest time and nothing was working, and then I went to see the faith healer. The fact that the two of them coincided doesn't mean anything. The other thing is, how many people has this faith healer treated that did not recover? Those people are dead. They're not there to testify. They're under the ground. So we don't have that evidence available to us. You can't do selective reasoning when you're handling these things. You can't look for the hits and ignore the misses, which is something that scientists are not supposed to do, but sometimes do.
In your book about faith healers and in your research, did you find any legitimacy whatsoever to the claims?
I've never found any legitimacy for any of the claims, whether in faith healing or in ESP or dowsing or whatever. Never, ever. I'm sort of disappointed to have to tell you that. I would like there to be one case that I could point out to you and say, you know, that one really had me going for a while there, because it appeared whatever. Or even, and I'm willing to do it, I could even say, yes, that one proved to be real. And not looking forward to that, and I don't expect it to happen. But I must make that statement if and when it does happen. There's no question of it. I'm committed to that, and I'm committed to paying the $1 million if and when it happens. But no, I've never had any case. Well, one I should mention, Sophia Loren. Now, one of her summer homes is 11 miles away from where we sit. I've plotted it on the map. I know exactly. She looks pretty good at that age. That ain't oil of Olay. There's something going on there, and I would like to do a personal investigation of that. But don't tell Sophia, because she doesn't know that my car. You saw my car outside. The car is named Sophia in her honor. It's only a little Miata. Should be a Rolls Royce, I think. But yes, I often use that example. No, I can't explain Sophia Loren, but then she never claimed the $1 million either.
I love it. Probably, and I could go on asking you questions. I'm so fascinated with your work, but probably the biggest question that I have is, a lot of people may say, great, you've spent 50 plus years examining these types of activities and probably kept us all from wasting time, but really, what's the harm? What's the harm?
That's the bottom line, isn't it? That's the big question. Mr. Randi, why are you pursuing these people? They're harmless. Sylvia Browne is a silly old fat lady who, with long fingernails, who goes on Larry King and Montel Williams and talks to people about all kinds of spirits and things. I think she smokes too much. I'm not sure. What harm is she doing? What she's doing is changing the basic philosophy of people. She's weakening them. She's changing the way they look at the real world, if they look at the real world at all. And it's the thin edge of a very large wedge. People can go from that to spending the $700 for a half hour for a telephone reading with Sylvia Browne, which thousands of people do. She's booked all the way up through next year, she says. That's only financial loss, however. But the fact that it changes their philosophical and their emotional outlook on the world can be devastating. It's not just dangerous, it can be devastating. I'm sitting at this very table in this library here at the James Randi Educational Foundation. You don't know how many times I've been across the table from families sitting there teary-eyed saying that mom or the mother-in-law has cashed in all the CDs. We don't have any money left. She got a second mortgage in the house. We don't know how we're going to pay that. She gave it to Reverend so-and-so or to Dr. such-and-such or the great Balsamo or whatever in order to help her understand the world better or to cure her cancer, whatever it is. And I have to look them straight in the eye and say, I'm sorry, folks, I don't have an answer for you. If she has the power of attorney to do that, she has a legal right to do it, you're never going to change her mind. You will not change the mind of the true believer, ever, no matter how much evidence or what quality of evidence is presented. It won't change their minds. They're committed to a belief in this, and again, they don't just need that belief, they must have it. They absolutely must have it, or their lives, they think, are empty. The big danger of the faulty alternative medicine approaches is that people abandon orthodox care. That's the problem. After all, fellow, for example, just an imaginary case here, has diabetes. Goes to the doctor, says, what's wrong with me, doctor? We did the tests, we looked at your system, you have diabetes and you're going to have to take insulin for the rest of your life. Oh, wait a minute, I want you to cure it. I don't want to just go on taking needles all the time or pills, whatever form has been prescribed. No, I want to be healed of it. I want to be cured. We don't have a cure for diabetes. We can treat the symptoms and you can live a long and useful life and a comfortable life, but we can't heal it. We can't cure it. Oh, but Professor so-and-so down the street here who runs the quack clinic, he says he can. Oh, all right then, go to him. They go there, they abandon the legitimate medical care, and they die. But again, they're not around to complain. The bank account has been emptied over the years, and they die because they abandon. Now, there's another thing here that we must handle. Medicine itself, orthodox medicine. Orthodox in quotes, okay? I recently visited a pulmonary doctor over here because I had a bad cough. All cured, no problem. It was nothing serious, but he sat me down in the office and he said, "Oh, we know who you are, Mr. Randi, and I want to assure you of something." Now, this is a doctor I'd never visited before. He said, "This office practices evidence-based medicine." And I said, "Yes." I looked at him and I said, wait. You mean other medicine is not evidence-based? Now, this shows my ignorance. And I was quite willing to show my ignorance. He said, "Oh, no." He said, and I said, "Oh, wait a minute. An example would be the ulcers business." He said, "Perfect example. Perfect example." Now, ulcers at one time were thought to be tearing up of the lining, which they are, of the stomach. They're brought about by emotional states and whatnot. It can be aggravated by emotional states, but actually it's a bacterial infection. A bacterial infection, not even a virus. Heavy doses of antibiotics goes away. Now, you may get it again, have to do it again, okay, but we can cure ulcers now. Absolutely cure ulcers. And I'm not speaking of all ulcers now, limited, and I'm not going to get into the medical terms, but limited class of the most common ulcers. But for years, they were giving you all kinds of chalk that you'd swallow and drink a lot of milk and stay away from this, that, and the other thing, because they didn't know any better. But now, modern medicine now says, "Oh, that's a discovery." They issued it all over the place. They said, "Now we can cure it, folks." Oh, God, all the doctors sat up and made notes and said, "Okay, now we can cure it." They incorporated that into modern medicine. Now, a lot of medicine, however, that they're still practicing, they will admit to you, if you get them in a confidential mood, "Yeah, we don't know how this works, but it appears to work." And that's what we use. Medicine is a science. Science doesn't know everything. Now, people throw that at me all the time, and I say, exactly. Wait a minute, you're admitting that science doesn't know it? No, but science is trying to find out as much as it possibly can. Science is a search. Science is not a goal that has been reached. No, every science is a search for more information about the world that we live in. And that's what makes science grand. And it's correcting, self-correcting, self-limiting. It must prove itself all the time, and anyone can come forth with the right credentials and such and point out, this is wrong, change it. Science is constantly changing to adapt itself to new information that comes along. And medicine is exactly the same way, and most doctors don't inform their patients. "We're doing the best we can for you. We believe this will work." No, they don't tell them that in most cases. Therefore, people feel abandoned. They feel deceived by medicine in many cases. Now, what's sitting here talking wouldn't be here if it weren't for the hospital right across the way here. I had an angioplasty a few years back, almost died, but they saved my life. Wow. That wasn't quackery. That wasn't homeopathy. It wasn't cranial submission. It wasn't dowsing. It wasn't any of these strange things. It wasn't diagnosing me with a pendulum. None of those things. As a matter of fact, when I was undergoing the anesthetic for the angioplasty, one nurse leaned over and she said, "Mr. Randi, I think you should know that we're not using the most modern medicine on you. We're not using any homeopathy or acupuncture." And I said, "I want to see my lawyer." And at that point, the Valium took over, and I don't remember what happened after that. So they have a certain sense of humor about it, but the medical profession has to answer up to that. They don't tell patients what they're really all about, what medical science really is, and most people have a misunderstanding of it, and that's the fault of the medical profession.
One final question. After all these years, do you think you're winning the war?
You don't win a war like this because the enemy is constantly refurbishing itself, and the pitfalls are increasing all the time, and the erosion of the intellect is occurring. You win individual battles. You win some people over. Not the true believer, the person who's been in it for decades. No, you'll never win those people. They're determined in their way. They want to be ignorant, and they will stay that way. But every now and then, oh, that's very rewarding. And sometimes I put them up on the web page. Every now and then I get a letter from someone saying, "You know, you really got me turned around. You made a big difference. I used to believe in so-and-so and such and such." And then I looked at what you said and I thought, well, what is this man's problem? Why is he so negative on these things? A fellow came in here with a tattered copy of Flim-Flam, one of my books. And